Are robots going to take over the world?
They are not. Having robots is a good solution there. Not to replace people, but
Right.
to help them do more with minimal staff.
Let's debunk this myth for them.
But definitely there'll be more robots in our real day-to-day life. No driving, no steering wheel, and it is a pod which runs like, hey, take me here, and that's about it.
How did you think about diversifying across so many different ranges of use cases in the same and adding depth to each of these applications?
When things are early, you always have that opportunity that you can touch upon a lot of other things as well.
You filed for more than 60 patents in your journey.
Unless you do something, really out of the world, there's no patent at all. But sometimes it's very important to understand that smallest detail aspects of an overall system is a patent in itself.
What were some of the key challenges that you faced?
Less people can do more. If the developed world wants to have those services which, the developing world is enjoying, so they need to automate a lot of it.
And it was fantastic to have this conversation with you because I think you and your team were like snappy.
A lot of learnings led to where we are right now.
If you could have a personal robot assistant, what kind of crazy, wacky features you would like to add to that? The Hustle Group Company. Let me introduce you to the Hustle Group Company. It's a lifestyle brand that's redefining streetwear through the power of fashion, self-belief, and resilience. The second one being Discover Dollar, which is an AI-driven tech company that helps brands and retailers recover hidden dollars from overpayments and leakages. DocsNow's intelligent platform empowers businesses of all sizes to rapidly collect, manage, govern, and collaborate on the data front, transforming your documents and making sure there's an impact on the business bottom line, all in a secure and a single environment. Hello everyone, welcome to yet another episode of the Innovators and Disruptors Podcast. I'm your host Abhay Tandon, and today we're going to go deep into the world of robotics and robots. And for that we have a very special guest here with us today, Ritukar. Ritukar is a dear friend, but he's an amazing technologist. He's a subject matter expert when it comes to robotics. He's the founder of a fantastic company called Autonomy, and he's also fondly known as the delivery robot man. Thank you so much, Ritukar, for joining in. Lovely to have you here.
Thank you so much, Abhay, to have us here. So the most important thing is that very few podcasts are more focused on so many aspects around people, technology, and loved a few of the initial episodes, and glad to be part of here.
Thank you so much. I'm glad that you liked it. Like you said, right, we're going to focus on a lot of stuff about you, Ritukar, who you are as a person, how you got into robotics, and then we're going to dwell a lot deeper into some of those robotic concepts. I'm sure the audience would be very keen to understand some of the technical concepts in a very simplified way. So we're going to touch upon some of those things, and more importantly, the impact that it's creating in the world today, right? So, let's address the elephant in the room first. Are robots going to take over the world?
They are not, but definitely there'll be more robots in our real, day-to-day life.
Mm-hmm.
As right from autonomous vehicles to delivery robots to house assets, and you name it. So that's going to happen,
right.
And that has started happening since last couple of years now.
For sure. I mean, I see robots cleaning the floor.
Yes.
I see robotic arms doing a lot of automation in industrial environments. In the company that I was previously working for, TVS Motor Company, I saw robotic arms with 16 touch points run by a neural network for the paint function, right? So you see a lot of these things now actually getting and becoming a part of our daily activities. We just don't realize that robots are everywhere today, and they're just going to be more meshed up. So the intermeshing of robots in our lives with human lives is going to be a lot more, like you said. So fantastic to hear that. So people who are worried, let's debunk this myth for them. Robots are not going to take over anytime soon. At least I'm hopeful for all the folks who are into these kind of conspiracy theories as well. AGI is far off. It's fairly far off. ASI is further far off, probably not in our lifetime. And we're not going to see robots take over. They're going to be there to help us out. So now that you've addressed this, Ritukar, let's go a little deeper into understanding who you were as a kid How did you grow up? What brought in that scientific mindset to solve for some of these challenging issues around robotics? I just wanted to understand a little bit more about your growing up phase.
Yeah, I think a lot came in from sports, right? So I used to run 100-meter sprints, and football. Used to play football during my school days. I was telling my son a couple of days back. It was a sports day when I told him that my 100-meter sprint was 10.53, and the India record for today is 10.23.
Wow!
So I was telling him the importance of less than a second. How does it matter? So sports actually tell you a lot about like solving problems, things which are very difficult to do, and you get into a mindset that whatever you want to do, you can potentially. At the end of the day, that also tells you a lot about failures. So that mindset is ready once you are like early in the journey part of the sports. So when fast forward, when it comes to technology or anything which interests you, So I was very fascinated by moving things and RC cars and moving things. So eventually it got into an interest that what else we can do. Hollywood sci-fi played a very important role in probably every technologist's life, and that also kind of created that interest and curiosity to what can we do? I mean, back in like 90s, if you see a movie like Terminator, so that's how your perception of robots at that point became. And that's how the journey started. I think it's a sports sci-fi that led to curiosity, and that was the initial point.
Wow, that's amazing, right? Because I mean, it's so impressive to understand the kind of background that you had in sports, and connected that to the moving things aspect of life, and intersecting that with sci-fi. Because a lot of innovation that has happened has been because of sci-fi, right? You get inspired by sci-fi, and that's why storytelling and meaningful narratives, science fiction narratives, are so critical sometimes for us to, imagine far beyond and think about how to bring those to life. In fact, I don't know if you've heard of this book called as Hieroglyph by Neil Stephenson. It's a fantastic book where they brought in a bunch of scientists and a bunch of storytellers together to actually, base their chapters or individual stories not in 2200 AD or 2500 AD, but rather 2250 AD, so that's still in the near future, 30 years from now, but having very scientific backing to every story.
Yeah.
Right, and that's what inspires us. That's why this project was formed, Project Hieroglyph, to come up with the stories that can inspire us to solve for some of those challenges. Very interesting. In fact, I think for as long as I understand in my research, you've been into autonomy. And this is not the autonomy of your company, the autonomous vehicles, autonomous technologies at large. And one of the first ones, or first exposure to robotics that you got was in your undergrad in Jaipur, where you also won a lot of prizes and grants as well, including a grant by DST, Departments on Science and Technology. Do you want to share a little bit more about that part of your journey as well?
So I think early on in the journey, when I started engineering, the very first year I applied, for Kishore Vigyanik Protsahan Yojana by ISC. It was young, scientist program to support them. And,
right.
I thought about an idea that how can we garner sunlight during the night? So solar power. So a couple of geostationary satellites, which are passing on things here, there, and, a small paper was created and submitted. I never heard back from them for obvious reasons, because it was very less, organized. Obviously, it was missing out the details because I didn't know everything at that point, even now in that particular subject. But, that failure actually, prepared me to do better, And that's why, when I submitted for the next, application for Department of Science and Technology, it was slightly better prepared, more focused on the objective that what needs to be done here. So that was my first grant in my second year or third semester, so as to create robotic arm with ultrasonic vision. And fast forward, 2 years back, garnering solar energy through during the night actually got published by somebody else, a large research organization. And I was smiling, and I was telling my wife, and she was like, "Okay, come on."
No.
So that's how it happens. Sometimes you think about it,
Yeah.
you don't have the means to execute it, or to and that's where you need a team. And that's exactly what we did back in college.
Right.
So once I got like a scholarship from DST, then created a team of people, like-minded folks, and created a robotic club. So
Brilliant.
that became my majority of my engineering, and everything else was secondary per se. Yeah.
Fantastic. You even won the best autonomous robot in 2006. And to your point, right, it's a full circle. It's a circle of transformation is how I would like to call it, where you envisaged something way back so many years ago, and now you're seeing it fulfilled, sometimes by your own effort, sometimes by someone else's effort. But the fact that it's got fulfilled today, that idea took shape and is materialized today, it must be a fantastic feeling.
Yeah, it was good, and so creating that team and to execute it, that was biggest learning from that, right? And fast forward within the same robotics club, I never imagined, but one of our co-founders here at Autonomy is from the same robotics club.
Oh wow!
So yeah.
Amazing. That's so super amazing. In fact, if I'm not wrong, just after college, you got into autonomous vehicle software discipline and build these autonomous vehicle softwares for unmanned battle tanks. Am I correct? I mean, this is fantastic, right? So what was that journey like? What was the transition like?
I was fortunate enough because there were hardly any robotics companies in India back in like 2009, 10, around that time. And, there was a company called High-Tech Robotics, led by, Anuj Kapuria, a very dear, mentor, I'll say. And we had the privilege to work on the most cutting edge technologies, which was unmanned ground vehicles for defense applications. And pretty much the 3D LiDARs, which you see on the autonomous cars, we were one of the first ones to get it from US, in the APAC region itself. It was that early. So all the DARPA Grand Challenge back in 2007, 2008, those were the latest research which we were referring while building those technologies. So it was that just set the stage. I mean, you are new into that space. You are very enthusiastic. You have burnt your fingers doing small things, but then that gave a lot of exposure about how to build real unmanned ground vehicle systems, which can be used by one of the most important customers for any technology where life and death is important is around defense, right? So I think couldn't thank enough. I was fortunate enough to get into that and spent good amount of time across India with variety of DRDO labs while at High-Tech to pursue those things into conceptual items into a real world product.
That's amazing. In fact, I think it's probably during that phase that we ideally would have bumped into each other.
Yeah.
I remember in one of our conversations much later that we both were at the same conference that was organized by one of the companies that I was a part of at that point of time in Goa.
Yeah.
And I remember High-Tech Robotics, I remember Anuj, and I remember hearing your name because you were also there. I don't know if we bumped into each other, did we speak? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But we definitely were present at the same place at the same time way back in 2014.
2014, yes.
Right. And I think much later in 2020 is when we got together, had an amazing brainstorming conversation. I'll refer to that brainstorming conversation a little later in the conversation. But I think that's again when we really got in touch and we started speaking a lot more.
Small world, right? So 2014, at that point in time, me and Anuj were scouting for robotic startups, and we went to Goa at that point. And obviously, when you said that you were at the same event, and it was very closed event per se, we would have definitely bumped into each other.
I'm sure.
So I think it's Cosmos which got us back in 2020, where we got in touch again and discussed a lot more opportunities there. Things were changed at that time. Yeah.
True. I mean, fantastic journey as well, right? In fact, that didn't stop there for you. I think you continued the whole, going deeper into applications around autonomous technologies, going from autonomous warehousing to autonomous shuttles, and then including the BMW's L4, vehicular technology, right, on the autonomous front. How did you think about diversifying across so many different ranges of use cases in the same and adding depth to each of these applications?
I think it was, it started with a large set of curiosity where you're wide. You can choose anything which you want. And when things are early, you always have that, opportunity that you can touch upon a lot of other things as well.
Right.
So when we started defense, at high tech, so then obviously there was a commercial side which was around warehousing. So that get a flavor of autonomous mobile robots in warehouses and manufacturing facilities. And there was a wonderful team which was executing it. And then we also realized that what can we do in autonomous driving side, and that's where India as like not just the infrastructure but the driving habits are such that it's very difficult to have like autonomous vehicles on road.
Right.
So we thought of campuses where these shuttles can be run, and those were like everybody was kind of iterating and learning that what will work because the technology was there.
Right.
And that always happens with the evolution of core underlying technologies which are deployed somewhere, right? So even today, if we fast forward, we look, the AMR business is growing wonderfully well. Everybody knows autonomous mobile robots in warehouses or manufacturing setups. The shuttles still are coming up, is still not there, and that probably had it been a scenario if we would have not done that time, we would have never realized that part.
Right.
But and automotive is again, levels of autonomy. So that's where I got into, I moved to Germany, joined a company called Aptiv, where I led, the BMW's urban autopilots program. Right. And it was that time when, multiple levels of autonomy actually came into real life because that was a live automaker. And while we were looking at highway autopilots, urban autopilots, and but still not fully autonomous, L4 autonomy where there's nobody behind the wheel.
Right.
So that was kind of general progression towards understanding more, and that was just before autonomy, and a lot of learnings led to where we are right now. Yeah.
So in fact, I remember in 2021. If I'm not wrong, it was 2020 rather, because 21 was already COVID.
Yes, yeah.
So 2019, in fact, September, I was in US, I was in New York at the Naval Yard, the research park there, right? New York Naval Yard.
Yeah.
And I saw autonomous shuttles there.
Yeah.
Only to be, for people to be moving around within the Naval Yard ecosystem. And I was like, wow, man, this is pretty cool. Cut to 2023, and then you had some mainstream cabs being autonomous as well, right? Yes. So it was fantastic to see the progression in 4-5 years that has happened in this space. And I'm sure that you've also had a good role to play in this whole ecosystem's development as well. So fantastic. Kudos to that. But Ritukar, along this journey, one very fascinating thing was you filed for more than 60 patents in your journey. It's not a small number. 60 patents is a huge number. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about how easy was it to file those patents? How many of them were granted potentially? And specifically for for a lot of audience members who are in the R&D space, there is a lot of apprehension in terms of filing for patents. I also want you to talk to us a little bit about the advantages in developing your own IP and using that as a tech moat. A lot of people forget that tech moat is super critical from defensibility standpoint. And how did that help you?
Yeah, I think, when I was in my previous organization and, we had a lot of technology which were developed and very less patents filed. So we just roll our sleeves at what is happening. We need to have some patents filed because normally patents are filed when at the inception of the idea.
Right.
And there we were sitting where we have built it and we have not filed it. So then very few patents were filed, but then we thought that there's so much which we can patent. And a normal perception is unless you do something, really out of the world, you should not file. I mean, there's no patent at all. But sometimes it's very important to understand that smallest detail aspects of an overall system is a patent in itself. Right?
Makes sense.
And that understanding we got, and there were so many things which we started, and the hang of getting the patents, the process was because I also drafted a couple of patents myself. And while it was very difficult for a tech team to a legal team to conspire together to come up with the write-up and all the claims and everything, we actually got into it. Let's figure it out. Let's do it. And once we did that, one or two times, we got the understanding of what needs to be done here. So now we had a better understanding that when we are doing something new, where what will be the system, what will be the method, what will be the claims, and suddenly you start thinking like that. And then it becomes easy because once you are working in a technology field which is continuously growing, every day something new is happening. So it becomes easy for any technology company or a person to start filing more and more patents. That's what happened. We never thought of any number in mind, but whatever we were doing, we started filing, and to our surprise, almost 70 or 80% have been granted. And Fantastic. A few of them are still under evaluation. So I think that's one of the fundamental things that where we think that patents are a very, very big thing. It's just part of the process. And if we start doing it, even if you have a conversion of 70 to 80, right. There's a portfolio right there.
For sure.
And what it does to you is, defensibility. I think there are few things which should not be patented, like secret sauce
right.
of the system. They should not be patented because, at the end of the day, patents also get published, right? So once they are granted, everything is out. So, not everything should be patented as well. So there's some secret sauce which you can still keep it with yourself, but everything else you can just put it out for people to know that this is yours, and you defend yourself. Strategy for early stage startups should, my recommendation should never be on the offensive, that we have this patent, so you can't do it. Rather, it should be the other way around. Since we have the patent, so we are, legit to do it.
Makes a lot of sense.
That's the fundamental thought process here. Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's a very good perspective, right? Because sometimes people do not look at collaboration. It's important to collaborate when you have patents, because that's when you can.
Yes.
Right, you can license the technology out and you can still make money. I mean, look at Amazon. There was a phase in my life when I was just following the patents that Amazon was filing in the delivery space. And I was like going bonkers because every week there was news about some or the other radical patents being filed. And I'm like, wow. Like, I think there was a patent filed on hot air balloons having a whole damn warehouse and drones delivering it from that warehouse, and that hot air balloon is floating in the air across a continent, and drones would just deliver it depending upon where that balloon is and what is being asked of. Another was underwater delivery system, and I'm like, what is going on with these guys? Right? I mean, how feasible or realistic are these delivery mechanisms? But having said that, they have made sure that they've got a lot of these things covered today.
Yeah.
In the future, if ever there's a scenario, they know they can just license out the technology.
They can always, look at what is happening underwater. All the data centers are now set up underwater because of two reasons. One is the space, of course. There are a lot of oceans there,
right?
On Earth, I'll say. And then, the biggest challenge for having a data center is the heat
production
and the electricity, which it is used to, cater to that, temperature. So underwater makes 100% sense. You don't have to spend millions on electricity to maintain that temperature, and there's open space. So imagine if they were just setting up a dark store underwater. Right. So here you are. Some of the overlaps can be there right away. Right.
And the longevity as well.
So sometimes you don't even anticipate what might happen, and maybe the core function might be different, but the use of technology can be completely done for something else.
Very true. No, that's fantastic, right? In fact, so any one or two patents that were really close to your heart?
The first one which I drafted are always part of my life. It became like I'm writing a book.
Nice.
So those patents were like very very close, where we were creating a new system for warehousing automation, and I think it took some time, like about 1.5 months, for me to really spend some time there. And when I was writing that, then I realized at some point in time I can write a book as well.
Nice. Have you?
No, not. I mean, it's not worthy enough till date. So let's wait for that. Yeah.
No, you should write. You have a lot of amazing understanding, and you've broken down a lot of these concepts into very simplified pointers as well, right? For a lot of masses, right, or laymen, people like me who can now understand robotics a lot easier. So you should actually pen it down and write a book.
Will definitely. I mean, yeah. At some point in time, yes.
Awesome. Ritukar, I want to talk to you about autonomy, but before I go there, I think a lot of people still don't understand what are the different levels of autonomous or autonomy. And when I say autonomy, I'm talking about AUTONOMY.
Yeah.
So when we talk about autonomous technologies, there are multiple levels. Could you, for the sake of the audience, talk about what the different levels are, and then we go deeper into your company autonomy?
Yeah, I think levels of autonomy basically depends on fundamental aspect of human engagement when the vehicle is processing something and giving an output. For example, an L0 system is a warning system, right? So it will give you a warning whether a front collision which is imminent, about to happen, it will give you a warning. Or it is a driver state where driver is drowsy and it gives you warning. So that's an L0 system, where the system is not actuating, but it is giving you warning based on all the whatever minimal sensor data which is these days present in trucks and cars already.
True.
And then we have L1, which is emergency braking. So that is like if you're driving the vehicle, at some point in time automatically it will brake. So that's the first stage where only the linear system is getting activated when there is an imminent collision. L2 comes in where you have a control on the acceleration and brake, which is maintain the speed, which is cruise control.
Yeah.
And along with that, you have some level of steering as well, just to maintain in a lane, for example. So lane keep systems are L2 basically. Right. And then the L3 systems are where you have larger control on both steering and linear actuation, where you can start changing lanes as well.
Got it.
So till this point, it is like all mostly, so the warning systems can be anywhere.
Right.
But the L1 and L2 normally works very well in highway situations, right? And that's where the initial Tesla Autopilot is normally when you are not in an urban environment, but you run it there. But the current version of Tesla Autopilot is pretty much crossing L3, L4 area. So it remains as an L3 system yet, because there is a human in the loop. There's a human behind the wheel still. So that's where it is. Again, the system is running autonomously, but at any point in time you might have to take control, and there has to be an attentive driver behind the wheel.
Right.
Now L4 is when everything is autonomous. You are just part of the overall system, and but still there is a steering wheel in the vehicle, which we call as Waymo, which is running.
Right.
The vehicle still has a steering wheel. So at some point in time, somebody might have to drive it, maybe for taking out from the shed to start or anything, right? So the vehicle still has a provision of a human driving element.
Right.
Now the last is L5, where there's no driving at all. So I mean no driving, no steering wheel, and it is a pod which runs like, hey, take me here, and that's about it.
Amazing. So just to recap, and fantastic analogy by the way, and using these levels from it's a lot more relatable when you talk about the analogy of cars, because people know L0 just trigger warnings.
Yes.
It could be the trigger around driver's state of mind when he or she is driving, to actually showcasing that they have to brake immediately, right? A trigger is what L0 is. L1 talks about
Braking.
braking, right?
Emergency
Linear.
braking, yeah.
So anything linear, it's just taking control, but for a very linear mechanism of emergency braking.
Yes.
L2 talks about cruise control, where you're maintaining the lanes, but you're maintaining the speed,
Yes.
right? L3 is now shifting the lanes. So now you're talking about braking as well as control of the steering as well. So you're changing lanes. L4 then becomes autonomous to the degree that you don't have to do anything. The vehicle will take you from point A to point B, but there's still a provision of a wheel just in case of a Waymo cab as well, where just in case it is required, there could be some human intervention that can come in. And L5 is a complete autonomy.
Yeah.
Right, where
There's no provision to drive at all.
There's no provision to drive. Amazing.
And so that's how NHTSA defined these 5 levels of autonomy. When it comes to robotics world, it's like the human replaced is from a teleoperator, right? So
Makes
how
sense.
much human element it is, because robots are not driven by people physically, but the human element comes from a teleoperation side. So that's how we have the entire levels exactly the same. It's just instead of a steering wheel, it's the remote driver situation there. Yeah.
Fantastic. Then let's get into Autonomy, your company. Now this is spelled as OTTONOMY, and your robots are called Autobots,
Yeah.
right? So could you tell us a little bit more about when did it start, how did it start, what was going on, and what led to Autonomy being Autonomy, right? I mean, the vision behind it.
So I think first of all, we started a couple of people within the group. We started jamming about what should be done. We have there's so many transformation is happening in the industry. So you ought to think that we need to do something. So myself, Hardik, who is from the same club. Then Pradyot and Ashish, we worked together like long back, starting from 2010, 2012. So we know each other. And we started working on, looking at various scenarios, like what should be done. So, but one thing was clear, that the only thing which we knew was autonomous systems. So we thought that no matter what we do, the company should be Autonomy. So that's how the name came about. We got the domains very early, which helped us to get the name, get the trademark and everything. And fast forward, when we had the robots, it was pretty obvious that hey, these are Autobots, and
Right.
pun intended. I mean, the Transformer movie also came in with Autobots. And one of the latest Transformer movies, when it was getting released, we got an email from the studio that they want to promote the Autobots with our Autobots, and although that didn't happen, but because they were like 10 days, and we were on 100 Autobots, and I was like, okay, that's really difficult to pull it off at that stage, in the early stage in the journey. But I think name branding plays a very, very vital role in the longevity of the company. So that's something which happened, and we are learning every day that how people enjoy the name.
Yeah. People say Autonomy, they talk about you.
Yeah.
Amazing. In your journey of Autonomy is when I think early on is when I reached out to you, probably in early 2020,
Yes.
onset of pandemic. I was working for this large US retailer, and I realized that one of the problems that we wanted to solve for was around COVID and safe distancing of consumers as well as the frontline staff workers, right? And we thought that, while we are promoting BOPIS as a concept, which is buy online, pick up in store, do people still have to go inside the store to pick it up? And that's when I had come across Autonomy. And I was like, let me reach out to you, because maybe we could come up with something very interesting. And it was fantastic to have this conversation with you, because I think you and your team were like snappy. You came back so quick with certain very interesting rendered designs, 3D models, etc., to visualize how Autobots, or I don't know if they were called Autobots back in the day. They were
not at that time. Yeah.
But these robots would actually pick up the stuff from the store, bring them to the car parking of the consumer. They would be able to scan a code, pull out their stuff, put it in their car. The robot goes back in. There's a UV, sanitizing, disinfectant as well as sanitizer as well, which was sanitizing the whole environment. It would go back in, and then again it would interface with the frontline worker of the store. And that would mean that, there's no probability of COVID being transmitted from one person to another. Everyone is safe, and yet so meaningful impact creating solution, right? So this was a fantastic brainstorming session that I was so happy about. And I think it happened over a span of 2 weeks.
I think it was impactful from a perspective that you had the functional knowledge that what is required at the store. What we had was a technical, strength that yes, we are already, into making robots and pretty much on the same lines. But to cater to a specific curbside, delivery or curbside pickups was something very, very interesting. And, I still remember, the UV sanitization of the packages. It was a crazy time, right? So COVID was like everybody, and now if you look at it, people were washing their stuff, what they got from the stores before using it. Right? So it was.
We were one of those people.
We were one of, everybody was. I mean, everybody was in panic. So, the enthusiasm to contribute in difficult times, I think that was high. And if you can do it with the fundamental thing which you're doing, like the work, nothing like it, right? Creating something new for those times was very, motivating for us. And obviously, it gave a lot of direction from what the customer wants, right? And that helped us in our journey. Although that didn't work out at that point in time, but later on, with a very large retailer, we were able to do the same thing. And
one of the largest that you were able to get ahead with, right? So that's fantastic. And cut to the journey today. If I see, today you have Autonomy's robots or Autobots across large medical facilities, hospital chains, Medtech companies, to one of the largest Spacetech companies too, right? Yeah. And in fact, international airports, a couple of them, if I'm not wrong. So it's spread out very, very well. You have some very strong names as your clients today. What's that journey been like? Because this is I feel so happy, and I've of course been following your journey for the last few years. It feels so good to see how Autonomy has grown.
I think, we thought about a lot of things when we came up with delivery robots, right? So there were some food delivery robots which they're in the market, and which people know delivery robots as food delivery robots.
Right.
But there's a lot more to it, because if you look at it, and there are things like in healthcare, you have blood samples, you have telemetry equipment, you have vaccines which needs to be moved from point A to point B.
Right.
And specifically in the West, in the US, the labor shortage led to a massive increase in hourly wages, and because of which having robots is a good solution there, not to replace people, but to help them to do more with minimal staff. A typical example for a hospital is like a hospital nurse walks about 15,000 steps a day. And that's that's not his or her primary job, right? So if we can, eliminate or minimize that walking part where they're taking things from here to there, that is a massive opportunity for the caretakers to actually do care, take care of the patients. And that's where we see a lot of ROI for the customer coming in for the healthcare areas. And same with biosciences or pharmaceutical companies. Similar aspect, like the vaccines should be temperature controlled, moved from point A to point B. 100% it makes sense, and all they're doing is they're doing deliveries with a maintained chain of custody, so that nobody should have access to while the things are moving from point A to point B. And none of us actually thought about it that this might be the most important use case to run it. But at the same time, what we also realized that these robots are also doing last mile delivery for a customer in London, in Milton Keynes, with DPD, who are actually it's a logistics company delivering all the Amazon packages in Milton Keynes. Yeah. And the robots are delivering, right from food to, of iPhones and you name it. So I think it is not 2014 where we have purpose-built robot to do just one thing.
Right.
We are living in 2025 where it's more of a horizontal play, where you have these robots, running in different ODDs or operational areas, right?
Right.
So at this point, we are running with hospitals, pharmaceuticals, last mile, hyperlocal last mile, airports, and you name it. So
Wow.
it doesn't matter anymore what is the use case. It does matter that the technology and the platform should stay the same, and it should run or deliver items from point A to point B in all of these scenarios. So that's the generalized, a pseudo generalized AI layer which we are creating right now.
It's very good that we're thinking of technology to help our frontline nurses save time, so that that's time that they can dedicate to taking care of patients. So technology, we need to use this. It's really good. Right now, we're talking about our telemetry, right? Our telemetry boxes and all that. I could see it being used with processes with our laboratory, like blood products, retrieval of blood products, etc., phlebotomy. We could use it for our pharmacy, because sometimes our pharmacy techs bring patients back and forth.
That's so amazing. In fact, you must have had some detractors or naysayers who would not be very happy with your approach about taking this as a horizontal layer, right? People would, more often than not, I've seen investors talk to you about, putting in vertical niches, right? So that you stick. There's always the saying that do not have your foot into both, right? Just focus on one, go in depth in that one particular area, and build your expertise there. But you took a very different approach. You said that we're going to use this, we're going to platformize this, right? We're going to make this as a horizontal and solve for the tech behind it, such that it's modular enough that any different kind of use case could be addressed.
Yes.
Did you face some of these challenges?
Of course, vertical growth is something which every investor will talk about. So do this one and do this for 3 years, 5 years, and then diversify. That's the standard way of doing things.
Yeah.
But we need to step back and understand why hardware and robotics is still evolving. Why it is you see in last 10 years there are hardly any billion-dollar robotics companies which were vertically growing, right? They actually, it's a hard fact. If you ask a couple of investors, they'll go back and do some research on it.
Right.
But at the same time, there are 6 months old AI companies which are multi-billion dollars. Why? Because the approach is platform. They are not building an AI solution for a legal firm. They are not building an AI platform for something else, and they are not going vertical. And the reason, the moment you start going horizontal and you are able to crack and build a system which can cater to multiple domains, that's where the opportunity is. And we don't want to settle for like 500 million valuation. We want to be the billion-dollar company in robotics.
That's fair. That's fair, and that I think makes a lot of sense. I think we've already. I think a lot of those legacy companies have also started moving towards Mac architecture because they understand that that's the way to go about, right? Platformizing is the way you're going to be addressing a lot of different needs, but by making sure that the architecture in the first place is addressing a lot of these challenges, right? So you're still developing it modularly, but then you're developing it to solve for an end-to-end solution.
So you well thought out the system. You have provisions for everything, and you start working for customers. So for example, today we are doing hyperlocal last mile, airports, and healthcare. Healthcare being one of the major focus areas for us. So we are going deeper into healthcare, integrating with their ecosystem, things. So, but at the same time, we also have to realize that the technology also is very, very important to crack that.
For sure.
So this January we came out with our contextual AI 2.0 framework, where we worked with Umbrella and Stanford, and we released it in January. Where we are automatically identifying the places where the robots are running. So fantastic. Because at every place, so a hospital, airport, or a sidewalk, the robot behavior is different. And till like last year, we were tuning those behaviors based on where it is running manually, or pseudo automated way. Now what we are doing is we are automatically identifying these environments, like the scene understanding that this is a hospital, indoors, aisle, brightly lit, and if it is a outside a warehouse, which is a loading area, dimly lit, uneven surface, and all those things, and we automated way, we associate the behavior around that.
Amazing.
And this is something which we are doing by running, standard VLMs on edge hardware. So,
Nice.
you see, I mean, we couldn't have done it like 5 years back.
Right.
This is the right time to do it, and that's what use of AI, in a system which makes it more generalized and horizontal. So, if 5 years back any investor would have been talking about horizontal approach for robotics,
Right.
they would have we'll talk about it later. So probably later is 5 years now. I mean, this is the time to talk about it. Yeah.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So I think the difference that 5 years has made is the edge computing has become cheaper, much more accessible.
Yes.
And contextual AI with the new models out there is becoming much stronger.
Accessible.
To learn,
Yeah.
accessible as well,
Yeah.
right? So fantastic. So that's such a good vision, right? To have 5 years back to get into the space, and now this place is completely ripe, and you already have your platform in place.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic visioning. Thank you so much, Ritukar, on sharing these insights. It's fantastic. But across this journey, just wanted to also touch upon this thing. Were there other challenges? Because this space has been evolving. It's not been fully mainstream about 5-10 years ago, and you've been at it for a while. So applications have changed. Applications have now been more. People are more open to utilizing those applications. Let's put it this way,
Yeah.
right? What were some of the key challenges that you faced?
So one of the key challenges which we faced, how do we, so it all goes back to team, right? So how is the team, organized in a way so that, Ritesh Agarwal from OYO, he once said that have a microscope at one hand and telescope on the other hand, right? So you need to have a longer vision,
Yeah.
but you also need to have the microscope to see what's happening on a day-to-day basis. And I think in our early phases, we didn't hear Ritesh. so either we were too visionary or we were too, going micro. And about 1.5 years from the starting of the company, we realized that we have to balance it out, So what we did was we focused on, deliverables throughout the year. But at every CES, we have participated in 3-4 CES. Out of it, 3 we actually had our booths there. So we made it a point that in January we need to come up with a groundbreaking innovation, which is not an innovation at our end, but it is a global breakthrough.
Amazing.
So in the first CES we just announced our indoor-outdoor robots. In the second CES we came up with unmanned deliveries. So it can just deliver without a person taking it. It delivers and goes. So on the third CES we came up with Autobot Brew, where we have a beer tower on the robot. So it's anybody's dream to just call a robot to get you a fresh brew of beer.
Right.
So I think that helped us to balance out innovation and far thinking from new products. So innovation on the house, basically these 3-4 innovations each year we come up with something, and the output is a resultant of many ideas which were discussed. Only few of them were this is the only one which we are going ahead. Now, in 2 years back when we announced unattended deliveries, obviously there was no market for it at that point in time. Today, as the year unfolds, there are many announcements which are coming around unmanned deliveries, where the robots are delivering and going away from that. So normally it doesn't happen for food and beverage because you're hungry, you want to even if it is outside your building, you'll go out and take it. But when it comes to your e-commerce and anything from B2B scenarios, it's
Right.
okay to deliver it to something, right? Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. On that note, since we are talking about such a platformized approach and solving for so many different challenges and use cases, can you talk to us about 3 areas of impact that you think autonomy is creating for the world today?
So one of the key impacts is less people can do more. I think, and specifically, wherever there's a labor shortage, I think it is important. Because if you look at US and and if you look at India, the amount of services which Indians are privileged to at this point in time are not there in US.
Of course.
You imagine companies like Blinkit, Zepto, you're cooking something and you order something meanwhile and you get it in 10 minutes. That's not happening in US. and that's not because of any developed country or developing country sort of a thing. There's a labor shortage issue, so people are not available here. People are available to do it, and that's why it's happening. So we need to take labor shortage along with the services which you want. So if the developed world wants to have those services which the developing world is enjoying, so they need to automate a lot of it. And a good example is another automating a lot of manufacturing processes. So a lot of manufacturing is going back to US, and every country wants to have their own manufacturing today. So places where we have people, places where the fundamental reason why it got outsourced was people. So the opportunity is bigger than we can even imagine, but it has to be channelized in a way so that there are stages where that can be adopted by multiple industries. That's our view on this. Yeah.
So one is labor shortage.
One is labor shortage. Second is services. Vis-a-vis labor shortage. Then we have employment. So that's another aspect which autonomy touches. So we try to empower. So we had a specific program called internship cohorts. So we are a young startup. We can't hire everybody, but we do have internship cohorts where people learn, and they went out to go for masters. They pursue higher studies and whatnot, and that is always good for us, right? Good for us, good for the ecosystem. So that's something which we try to contribute. How we can kind of give it back by internship cohorts and helping people, young engineers to do something, give some directional inputs. And the third is breaking barriers. We were sitting in India in midst of COVID. We cracked few of the top customers in the US. So thinking that you have to be at X place to do Y things is not there. Right. So breaking barrier is something, do it. I mean, do not think that it's not going to happen. So inspiring, all the folks, opening up the strategies, how we can do it. It's the third impact which we can do. I mean, those are the three things we are doing pretty much. I mean, everything else is an outcome or, an ingredient to that.
True. I mean, if I may take the liberty, I think sustainability is another angle.
Yeah, I mean, sustainability. So impacting lives is like sustainability. These are electric vehicles. So exactly. I think at 2025, these are like things which every company should be working. I mean, exactly. if somebody is not working, that's a different story altogether. So to say that we are working towards sustainability, we are, and we should be. I mean, that's a table stake today.
That's amazing, Ritukar. So thank you so much for stating that. None of the podcasts are going to be complete without a rapid fire, right? So we're going to get into some fun elements, some fun questions, but I think also debunking a lot of myths around robotics. So we want to ask you a bunch of questions,
sure.
Rapid fire style. Please give us rapid answers too.
I'll try my level best.
Awesome. So, Ritukar, which robot from movies or TV shows do you wish was real?
So I think a Wall-E would have been real, and so that is the form factor which I really wanted to happen. Yeah. The one which should not be real was Terminator.
True. We still want to live.
Yes.
If we could work on any robotics project without budget constraints, what kind of a project would that be?
Well, a lot has been spoken and done around space, and we are still looking at sending people there. And last 2 years, a lot has happened in the humanoid space. So, and the reason is not because our perception of robots being human from the sci-fi age.
Right.
It is because the world is made for humans. That's why the robots which are like humans will contribute to more areas without any changes. So I think clubbing space with humanoids is something which will be definitely of a great interest.
I'm assuming that's also the field in robotics that inspires you the most.
The field of robotics, I think it is more on delivery space, because that is something dull and dirty is always the way to go for robots, and that's really important.
Fantastic. What was the most challenging robotics project that you worked on?
One of the most important, I can say, exciting projects. So back in like 2010, 11, we came up with a small robot which was running in an ambience mall in Gurgaon, giving suggestions. And if I remember correctly, we had a tough time having touchscreens because touchscreens were not widely available back in 2010.
Right.
So that was a fun project. We published a couple of papers there. And
nice.
that is the first experience around interaction engines at that point. Yeah.
Fantastic. What do you think will be the most significant advancement in robotics in the next decade?
I think advancement will be towards generalized AI. I think a lot will happen sooner, unless really some barriers with in terms of governance comes to the picture to stop it.
Fantastic. What kind of exciting innovation have you recently seen? Something that excites you about innovative work in robotics that you've very recently seen?
So I think there are a lot of them. A lot is happening. Difficult to choose, but I think Boston Dynamics, doing somersaults. I think that is one of the most interesting things which anybody can imagine, and that's what you do when you have unlimited budgets and you're doing somersaults. But that's a strong statement that sometimes you and me can't do somersaults, but robots can. So that's the statement which it makes.
Wow. What's a common myth about robots that you'd like to debunk?
That they are taking away jobs. I think that's a very common one, and the same happened when the computers came in. The same happened when AI came in.
Right.
That suddenly, now we do not need developers. We start firing off. I mean, there'll be some reorg which will happen, and people are needed to contribute to building ecosystem around AI as well. So that's one of the biggest myths which needs to be broken. Rather, we need to think beyond that how to continuously update ourselves.
Amazing. If you could have a personal robot assistant, what kind of crazy, wacky features do you would like to add to that?
The list can go very, very long, but I'll stick to a couple of them. So I think if it can, automatically reply all the emails, that'll be best. But because that is something which takes away most of your time, right? And I think a lot of things like cleaning and other things are already taken care by existing robots. So cooking is something which will be very interesting, where robots can actually cook and effectively cook. A lot is happening in that space also. So getting it to a point where it can be a household thing, just like you're having a mixer and a toaster, you have a robot to cook. So that's about it. Yeah.
Okay, so when I said wacky, I was thinking Star Wars.
Star Wars, okay. I mean, it's still we are trying to make it simpler and exciting for the normal things. Right. So I'll stick to that. Right.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Ritukar, for a fantastic answer that you have just shared with us and with the audience. And on that note, I'm going to give you something very interesting. No podcast is complete without a hamper. So we've got one for you as well.
Thank you so much. I mean,
this is for you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, man. Thanks a lot.
And this is sponsored by Kapek Designs, our partner, who personalize stationery and gifting for corporates. So this is personalized to you. Thank you so much.
We can use it at Autonomy as well. Thank you.
We should. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Lovely
much,
hosting you today. For the folks who are listening to us today, thank you so much for hearing us out. I'm sure you must have learned a lot about robots and the world of robots and how they are actually meshed up in our lives in every aspect of what we are doing today and in the future. So if you like this episode, do provide us comments, show us some love and give us suggestions. Thank you so much. Signing off. Feel free to share your perspectives through comments, subscribe to the channel, and do send us some suggestions as well. Thank you.